sight and building a false reality on lies and deception for far too long. And now, their time is coming to an end. It's time to fight back, to wake up, and to begin an uprising. Now is a time for judgment.
This is a time for judgment. Welcome to today's show. I've covered weather warfare before. And the fact that this technology has existed for a long period of time should be something that would trigger people to wake up and snap out of their deep sleep that they're in. And I think we're at a standpoint right now in 2022 where we can look at everything that's happening in the world. The stock market's crashing in America, in the UK, the outbreak that just occurred, the quarantines, the shutdowns of small businesses, all of the things that are going on, and we can say that the government is waging war on the citizens all around the world for their global government. Now, somehow we still live amongst people who are identifying themselves as liberals, who are libtards, who are completely insane people that don't see what's actually happening. It's like they're living in a different dimension where they don't see the government self-sabotaging us. And then they go, well, it's better than if Donald Trump was in office. Now, you all know that I don't identify as a Republican or a Democrat. I don't believe in either side. I don't believe our vote counts. And I believe that this party that's in power now is going to continue to rig everything and stay in power and continue to pump the drum of the white supremacist extremists. Anyone who disagrees with the government is a dangerous threat because people don't agree with what they're doing, which is making people go broke, creating food shortages, smashing inflation through the roof, and then doing things like this. You might recall that I talked about Florida being a honeypot a few years ago. Why? Because everybody was leaving to go to Florida. And it seemed too good to be true. Well, one of the things I said to keep an eye on is that they can drill Florida with HARP as much as they want. They could just weather warfare the crap out of it. So, in other words, you seduce all of the people who are thinking against the way the government thinks, which are Republicans, which are people who do not agree with what they're doing with this socialism, this tyranny that they're pushing, who believe in capitalism, who believe in God, and send them down somewhere where you could just go after them relentlessly. Now, what's crazy about all this stuff is that Florida is now looked at as this massive Republican state. It has not always been a Republican state. It's a flip state. And flip states are states that go from Democrat to Republican. It goes back and it goes forth. Republican states are states like Texas that always remain red. Democrat states are states like states like California that always remain blue. So they used Florida because they knew they'd be able to get people down there. They've been drilling people down south in Texas, Louisiana for quite some time, and they've been drilling Florida. One of the ways you could see that this is obviously weather warfare, and whether it's as strong as people believe it was or not is, something you could look at and disagree on some of the news footage that was out there versus what really occurred. That's something that will always happen. But we know that they create these storms and they weaponize the weather. They have the ability to do it. And the way that this storm came in from the other coast, the opposite coast, usually it comes in over on the east coast. This came in on the west off of the Gulf. And it stopped, it died down, and now it's speeding back up South Carolina, up the Carolinas in general. And people don't realize that they have the ability to use this type of weapon, this weaponization of weather, because they can get away with it. And what do? Well, they come out, and the first thing they talk about is climate change. And instead of talking about people who lost their homes or people who may have lost their lives down in Florida, the talking heads on the TV talk about climate change, and they talk about people who are resistant to climate change and how they're a problem. That's how insane liberal people are. That's how insane this country has gotten.
We just did something about climate change for the first time in decades. That's why we've got to win this as that hurricane bears down on Florida. We got to win in the midterms.
Can you tell us what this is and what effect climate change has on this phenomenon?
We can come back and talk about climate change at a later time. I want to focus on the here and now.
And listen, I'm just trying to get that. You said you want to talk about climate change, but what effect does climate change have on this phenomenon that is happening now? Because it seems these storms are intensifying. That's the question.
I don't think you can link climate change to any one event.
Okay. Well, listen, grew up there, and these storms are intensifying. Something is causing them to intensify.
The government.
So they talk about climate change. So why do they talk about climate change? Because they're going to use tactics like this, these weather storms. We know that they do the forest fires out west. We know we're going to see stuff in the winter with blizzards. I wouldn't be surprised if Texas is one of the targets with ice storms again. And it has two things that they want to get done here. They go after a Republican state because they get people who are against the ideologies of the New World Order, which is globalism, and they're able to get away with it. At the same time, what's the other thing that they can do other than ruining people's lives and destroying their homes after they baited everybody into going to Florida, is they could destroy the power grids, right? Get the power grids underwater. Because remember, all the grids in this country, they want to shut off. They want this to be green energy, which means they want to demolish the grids. I've talked about it in the past, how the grids are completely unprotected. Of all the things that we have, you would think they would keep the power grids protected, but they don't keep them protected for a reason. They want them to be sitting ducks. And it should make people suspicious. They should say, of all the things that we protect, I mean, we have security at, there's mall security for crying out loud, but there's no security at the 21 major power plants, power grids in North America. Oh, but we have, Walmart's got security guards for crying out loud. Oh, well, who's going to fund it? Well, I don't know. Maybe our tax money should go towards that instead of funding people for chopping off their wee-wees. That would probably make more sense, right? Because we all rely on the power grid to pretty much survive, unless you're Amish, who are the smartest ones out there. So I know a lot of people don't think that they're actually going to do a major shutdown of the grid, but I believe they are. And I don't think it's going to be that long because they can't get people situated to having a power grid shut down for too long. Because if people start adjusting to life without electricity, without power, without their phone, then they might actually be able to come out of this nightmare and actually start critically thinking again and realizing what's happening. So they can't do it for too long of a period, but long enough to disrupt lives, ruin lives, and then switch over to what they want, which is green energy. So for the people out there who think that weaponizing weather is a crazy conspiracy, you're out of your mind. Because this is documented by our government, by our military, that they've used this before. I'm going to show you some clips that you haven't seen before probably, that I haven't used on my channel, where you can learn something if you don't know, and I'm sure most of you know, but it's pretty good clips that talk about Operation Popeye. We're talking about Operation Mud. Make mud, not war was the slogan. Why? Because they were drowning people out. They're causing monsoons. They're causing all types of things with cloud seeding. Cloud seeding is real. Now, you look at it from these two perspectives, right? We know the government admits that cloud seeding is real, that we've used it in war, and we've seen people in states around this country cloud seed, which I'll show you as well. Yet we have droughts all over the country. So wouldn't a top priority for our country be to get water to these places that are having droughts that are causing food shortages for our country? Well, of course it's not, because the government's turned on the people, and they want the droughts. They steer these storms away from places like that. And what do? Off the shores of Florida, they create these things. They create these massive storms through crowd seeding and weather manipulation. And when they get it big enough, like this one was supposed to be, well, climate change is responsible. Climate change is responsible when we know that our government, because we could just look at everything our government's doing, we know that our government wants to destroy our lives. It's not just some conspiracy where you look at it and you go, the government really hates us. The government loathes us. They loathe Democrats and they loathe Republicans. They hate us. They are destroying the economy. They are destroying food. They are destroying farmers being able to get soil, fertilizer to make food. They don't want to help the farmers out. They're paying farmers to burn their crops. Okay? They're destroying the economy so that people can never retire, so that they can go on have their carbon footprint and have their equal pay, and everybody will just live minimally while they all live and own all the land and own all the resources. And they're doing it right now. And they need to be stopped. This is Operation Popeye. This is stuff that's actually going on that they don't tell you is going on.
This year marks the worst drought America's seen in decades, and it's showing no signs of letting up. Over half the country has been affected, with the brunt bearing down on the mid and southwest, especially Nebraska, Kansas, the Dakotas, and parts of the South. Just look at that. Well, in one hard-hit area of Texas, some people have grown tired of waiting for Mother Nature to bring relief and have decided to try and take matters into their own hands. Here's ABC's Juju Chang.
Craig Funky is flying me to the edge of a violent thunderstorm.
You see how nice and crisp the top of that cloud is up there?
Yeah. But the former commercial pilot isn't some adrenaline junkie courting danger. He's a cloud seeder, chasing this menacing storm to squeeze out extra rain for the drought-stricken farmland below.
As a pilot going through school, you're taught to avoid thunderstorms.
This is Craig's job, firing chemicals into the clouds in a controversial attempt to modify the weather. He's literally a rainmaker.
That dark, thick cloud over there has lots of moisture in it. That's part of the cloud that was seeded. It actually looks heavy with rain.
Cloud seeding has been used around the world for decades, but it's now getting a closer look as farmers...
Okay, we got the